If a snack says natural, plant-based, or heart-smart, many older adults assume it must also be blood sugar friendly. That sounds logical. It feels safe. And most of the time, nuts do deserve a healthier reputation than cookies, chips, or candy. But after 60, that shortcut can mislead you, because one popular nut can look wholesome on the surface, yet work against diabetes control in a very quiet way. Not because every bite is poison, not because your body suddenly cannot handle nuts, but because starch, softness, portion size, and the way a food is usually eaten can turn a better snack into a steady glucose burden. And before we get to the nut I want you to watch for, I want to give you one quick rule you can use in less than 10 seconds. Ask 3 things. How sweet? How soft? How much? If a nut product tastes sweet, goes down fast, and disappears by the handful, it should never become your automatic daily snack. That is the rule. How sweet? How soft? How much? Simple. Because after 60, the problem is often not one dramatic meal. It is the repeated snack that feels harmless, shows up every afternoon, returns after dinner, and slowly keeps blood sugar less stable than you think. And habits are the ones that change labs long before they change your attention. Why does this matter more after 60? Because many people are no longer starting from perfect metabolic flexibility. Maybe fasting sugar has crept up. Maybe A1C is being watched. Maybe energy drops harder after lunch than it used to. Some adults are also dealing with belly weight, higher triglycerides, blood pressure changes, poor sleep, less muscle, or long gaps between meals that lead to overeating. In that setting, a snack is not a snack anymore. It becomes part of the glucose pattern, and the body often responds more slowly than before. That is why a food can seem healthy on paper, yet still make diabetes management harder in real life, when portion, timing, and routine keep pushing the wrong way. If you like practical food rules without complicated jargon, type steady below. That one word tells me you want more senior-friendly diabetes tips that are simple, calm, and usable. Number 4. The sweet coating problem. This is where many older adults get pulled off course before they even notice it. A nut covered in honey, maple glaze, cinnamon sugar, yogurt coating, or crunchy caramel may still carry the word nut on the front, but the body does not process that package as if it were a plain handful from nature. It behaves more like a snack built to keep you reaching. That matters in diabetes care because sweetness changes expectations. It wakes up appetite. It makes a small treat feel easy to repeat. And when that sweet taste arrives in the afternoon, many people do not stop at one serving. They circle back after dinner. The smarter move is not panic. It is honesty. If the nut tastes like dessert, treat it like dessert. Do not promote it into the role of health food just because it started as a nut. That one mental correction can protect a lot of people from daily oversnacking. Number 3. The soft texture trap. Some snacks are self-limiting. They make you chew. They slow your hand. They create a natural pause. Others do the opposite. They are soft, mild, easy on the teeth, and almost too comfortable to eat. That may sound harmless, especially for adults who have dental issues, dry mouth, or just prefer foods that are easier to manage. But easy texture can quietly create a portion problem. Foods that disappear fast often escape the body's stop signal. You keep eating before fullness has time to register. And with diabetes, speed matters. Not only the speed of blood sugar rise, but the speed of eating itself. When a snack goes down quickly, people often eat more total carbohydrate than they planned, especially if they are tired, distracted, or eating while watching television. So, when you evaluate a nut for blood sugar friendliness, do not only ask whether it is natural, ask whether it slows you down. If it does not, it may be much less helpful than it looks. Number 2. The starch disguise. Most people hear the word nut and picture a food that is rich, fatty, a little crunchy, and relatively low in carbohydrate. That is exactly why this next issue fools so many viewers. Because one nut does not behave nutritionally like the others. It sits in a very different place. It is milder, softer, naturally sweeter, and far more likely to be treated like a comforting side, a seasonal treat, or a warm snack that feels innocent. That is the disguise. People borrow the health halo of the nut category, without realizing they are often eating something much closer to a starch pattern. And starch matters when blood sugar is the main concern. Not because starch is evil, not because every carbohydrate must be feared, but because diabetes management depends on seeing the food clearly. If you misclassify a starchy food as a free snack, your routine can drift in the wrong direction for months. This is especially true when the food is sold, peeled, roasted, vacuum-packed, or ready to eat by the handful. No shell, no bitterness, no chewing barrier, just a soft, sweet, steady stream. Number 1. Chestnuts. This is the nut I wanted you to stay for. Chestnuts are not junk food. They are not automatically off limits, and they do have nutrients that can fit into a balanced diet. But they are very different from the nuts most people think about when they hear good for diabetes. Unlike almonds, walnuts, or pistachios, chestnuts are much higher in starch and carbohydrate, which means they can behave more like a carbohydrate food than a typical nut. That matters because many older adults eat chestnuts with the mindset, it is just a nut, so it should be safer than bread or crackers. Sometimes that assumption is exactly what gets them in trouble. Chestnuts are also naturally soft and mildly sweet, so they are easy to eat quickly, easy to overportion, and easy to pair with other blood sugar drivers like syrup, honey, sweet drinks, holiday desserts, or long sedentary evenings. That is the real concern. Not one chestnut, not one serving at a family meal, but the quiet routine of treating chestnuts like a free pass. If you have diabetes or prediabetes, the smarter approach is to count them with the same respect you would give other carbohydrate foods. Measure them. Pair them with protein. Do not let the word nut hide the fact that they may affect your glucose very differently than the nuts you usually hear praised. That is the trap with chestnuts. They look safer than they act when the portion gets casual. And once a food gets labeled harmless, people stop reading the label, stop measuring, and stop noticing the pattern. Now let's flip the script, because once people hear a warning, they jump to the wrong conclusion. They assume nuts are the problem. They are not. The problem is choosing the wrong nut, or eating the right nut in the wrong form and portion. So the goal is not fear. It is replacement. You want options that slow you down, satisfy you longer, and fit diabetes care without pretending a snack does not count. The better choices are not magic. They work with your body honestly, and that honesty protects energy and glucose stability over time. Best number 4. The bowl before you bite method. This sounds almost too simple to matter, which is exactly why it works. Never eat nuts from the bag, the jar, the car cup holder, or the pantry door. Pour them into a small bowl first. That tiny pause does two important things. It turns an automatic habit into a visible choice, and it gives your eyes a chance to understand the portion before your hand outruns your judgment. For adults over 60, that matters more than people think. Appetite cues can be inconsistent. Medication schedules can shift hunger, and evening fatigue can weaken the careful decisions that felt easy in the morning. A bowl creates a stopping point. The package does not. So even before you decide which nut is best, decide that the container is not the serving. That one rule protects more glucose control than many people realize. Best number 3. Pair your nuts instead of letting them snack alone. A handful of plain nuts can be helpful, but for many adults with diabetes, a better move is to combine a measured portion with something that adds structure. Try nuts with plain Greek yogurt, nuts with cottage cheese, nuts with a boiled egg, nuts with a small piece of fruit, if your clinician says fruit fits your plan. Why does this help? Because balanced snacks tend to feel more deliberate and more complete. They reduce the odds of the snack turning into a second snack 30 minutes later. They can also slow the way you eat. You spoon, you chew, you pause, and that rhythm matters. One of the biggest problems in blood sugar management is not only what people eat, but how quickly the eating disappears. A paired snack makes disappearing less likely. It gives the body more than sweetness and crunch. It gives the mind a feeling of a real mini meal, and that can calm the search for more food later. Best number 2. Choose nuts that make you work a little. This is where texture becomes your ally. The best nut habit is not always the one with the fanciest nutrient story. It is often the one that naturally slows you down. Crunch helps. Shells help. Even a firmer texture helps. Anything that adds seconds between bites can improve awareness. That is why many people do better with plain almonds, hazelnuts, or in-shell pistachios than with soft, peeled, sweet, or buttery nuts that vanish without resistance. This is not about punishment. It is about feedback. The body needs time to notice a portion. The brain needs time to catch up with the hand. And diabetes care goes better when that gap gets smaller. So when you compare nuts at the store, do not only compare calories or carbs. Compare friction. Ask, Which choice naturally keeps me slower, more aware, and less likely to drift into overeating? That question is far more useful than chasing a perfect superfood. Best number 1. Make plain walnuts or almonds your default repeat choice. Not because they are trendy, not because they are miracle foods, but because they are boring in the best possible way. They are easy to find unsweetened, easy to measure, easy to pair with meals, and easy to keep separate from the dessert mindset that causes so much trouble. For diabetes care after 60, that repeat value matters. The best food is rarely the one with the most exciting label. It is the one you can keep using without confusing yourself. Walnuts and almonds fit that role beautifully. They bring healthy fats, some fiber, and a more typical nut pattern than chestnuts, which means they are less likely to fool you into thinking a sweet, soft handful is harmless. They also work in real life. A few walnut halves on oatmeal, a small serving of almonds with yogurt, some chopped walnuts on vegetables, a measured portion of almonds in a travel container. Nothing dramatic, nothing flashy, just steady. And steady is the point. When a food supports steadier habits, it usually supports steadier glucose too. That is the hidden advantage of a plain default nut. It lowers decision fatigue, it reduces surprises, and it makes the unhealthy option less attractive simply because you already have a dependable one ready. One more reason this matters is consistency. A dependable nut does not need a holiday season, a glaze, or a special recipe to get eaten. It can live in the pantry, in a measured container, or beside breakfast items where you actually see it. That visibility matters. People repeat what is easy to find and easy to trust, and when the healthy option is already decided, the sweet chestnut pouch or coated nut mix loses a lot of its power without demanding constant willpower from you. So here is the full takeaway. If you live with diabetes or rising blood sugar after 60, the smartest question is not, are nuts good or bad? The better question is, which nut, in which form, in which portion, fits my body and my routine now? Be careful with sweet coatings, soft textures, and anything sold with a free pass feeling. And remember that chestnuts are different. They may be called a nut, but they often behave more like a starch than the nuts usually recommended for diabetes-friendly snacking. That does not make them forbidden. It means they need respect. Count them honestly. Measure them. Pair them well. And for an easier daily default, lean toward plain, crunchy, unsweetened nuts, and a visible portion you can actually see before you eat it. That is how steady routine protects health. And one more important point before we finish. This video is a general healthy aging guide, not a personal diabetes treatment plan. If you use insulin, take a sulfonylurea, have chronic kidney disease, digestive issues, recent unexplained weight loss, or trouble keeping your blood sugar stable, your food choices may need to be adjusted more personally. The right portion for one adult may be the wrong portion for another. So use this as practical education. Then match it to your medications, labs, meal timing, and clinicians' advice for your body. So tell me in the comments, will you write steady or will you write chestnut check to remind yourself to watch that one nut more carefully this week? And share this with a spouse, sibling, parent, or friend over 60 who still thinks every nut works the same way. Sometimes one calmer rule, used again and again, can protect more health than people expect. Stay steady, stay aware, and I will see you in the next video with more confidence. If a snack says natural, plant-based, or heart-smart, many older adults assume it must also be blood sugar friendly. That sounds logical. It feels safe. And most of the time, nuts do deserve a healthier reputation than cookies, chips, or candy. But after 60, that shortcut can mislead you, because one popular nut can look wholesome on the surface, yet work against diabetes control in a very quiet way. Not because every bite is poison, not because your body suddenly cannot handle nuts, but because starch, softness, portion size, and the way a food is usually eaten can turn a better snack into a steady glucose burden. And before we get to the nut I want you to watch for, I want to give you one quick rule you can use in less than 10 seconds. Ask 3 things. How sweet? How soft? How much? If a nut product tastes sweet, goes down fast, and disappears by the handful, it should never become your automatic daily snack. That is the rule. How sweet? How soft? How much? Simple. Because after 60, the problem is often not one dramatic meal. It is the repeated snack that feels harmless, shows up every afternoon, returns after dinner, and slowly keeps blood sugar less stable than you think. And habits are the ones that change labs long before they change your attention. Why does this matter more after 60? Because many people are no longer starting from perfect metabolic flexibility. Maybe fasting sugar has crept up. Maybe A1C is being watched. Maybe energy drops harder after lunch than it used to. Some adults are also dealing with belly weight, higher triglycerides, blood pressure changes, poor sleep, less muscle, or long gaps between meals that lead to overeating. In that setting, a snack is not a snack anymore. It becomes part of the glucose pattern, and the body often responds more slowly than before. That is why a food can seem healthy on paper, yet still make diabetes management harder in real life. When portion, timing, and routine keep pushing